Bom dia, boa tarde ou boa noite. Hoje temos Nid, que está a percorrer o caminho da espiritualidade, onde é uma trabalhadora da luz. Comecou também invariavelmente com uma profunda depressão, além de um acidente de queda que temporariamente lhe lesionou o cérebro há 12 anos atrás. Entre várias terapias, aquela que mais resultados deu foi a Ioga Nidra. O Ioga Nidra é uma prática profunda e simples para aprender a descansar profundamente. Quando o corpo descansa profundamente, melhora o sono, a digestão, a auto-cura e a função, para além de se sentir mais energizado. O relaxamento do Ioga Nidra também o liga mais profundamente à sua alma e à sua autêntica expressão pessoal. Gostem, subscrevam e partilhem. O canal é Sinergias Holisticas, é onde a espiritualidade é, somos todos, nós.
Okay. So, how do you do today? Are you
I'm
alright?
very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very well. How are you?
Okay, nice, thank you. So, can we tell a little bit about your spiritual journey until now?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's so short, so brief. It's funny, I was thinking about that in the context that if you'd have asked me 12 years ago
yes.
of such a journey, I would have laughed and just been like, no, just normal life. But then a part of that journey in that 12 years has also included remembering that as a child, I had always had that vision of being a spiritual teacher. And so it was present very strongly in my childhood. But as many of us, I think, experienced childhood and fitting in and doing the right things and the important things our parents want to teach us, and school and getting jobs and all of those things, it gotten lost along the way. And so for me, it took a brain injury, which was through falling down some stairs one night, and that healing process, which initially that journey began obviously very much in terms of just getting some function, rebuilding a bit of function. And the first thing that the neurologist had said to me was meditate. It will help you rewire your brain and the parts of the brain that are damaged. And so I'd begun meditation and mindfulness with that intention. However, 6 months before I had my accident and I began doing meditation, I had actually been doing a Reiki meditation on the tube as a part of helping me process the end of my marriage. And so it's funny, I think, how we find that spiritual journey's happening and we don't necessarily recognize that we're already on it, and that it's calling us. And so although mentally I would have been saying, no, it's just mindfulness, it's just the way of living simply, it's just the way of how I can be a good person, how you can be a good person, how we can be present together. I was already on that spiritual journey. And obviously it just started to take me deeper and deeper as my healing journey happened. The meditations that I always did were very deep energetically and would take me to some pretty profound places. And so it was quite hard for me to say I wasn't on a spiritual journey. And also I intuitively was working with my chakras from having done Reiki and yoga for many years. I was interested in energetics. And so the pieces were there, right? But I wasn't necessarily knitting it together in my brain to consciously say I'm on a spiritual journey.
Okay. So when you were a little girl, you used to hear some voices or nothing like that? Yes.
So as a child, I saw ghosts. I had premonition dreams, and I would see visions of the future. And obviously the ghosts were quite scary. I didn't really like ghosts, and the dreams would often frighten me because I only saw I'd say this is the same for anyone that sees premonition visions. You're only ever seeing a fraction of a possible future. And to me, that always seemed quite scary. So as a child, I became quite fearful of the things that I was seeing. I had a very normal intellectual family. My family were all academics. And so it definitely didn't fit in an evidence-based world, what I experienced. And so although my heart really knew I would do spiritual work, I was scared of the way in which I was connecting and seeing the bigger picture. I also very strongly remembered past lives. I was born with a very big red birthmark on my chest that people would comment on. And I could remember how it had come about from a past life. And I could also often recall people I would meet in person in this life. I could remember our relationships in past lives. And I was able to discern that it was a different life. And so I knew that the interaction I was having with this person was new in this life, and the relationship that I had in this life wasn't founded upon past experiences. And as I became older, I could understand that that was helping me ground in the bigger picture of the perspective of this life, where I did get very caught up in feeling that life was unfair, that, wanting to see quick rewards, that impatience that we often have. And when I tap in and use that memory of being able to connect to other lifetimes, it removes a lot of that perspective that we can get stuck in this life.
So did you fall in the profound depression or no in your life?
I did. So as a child, I got a kind of spiritual existential depression by the time I was 8 years old. I was very fond of just taking lots of tablets. I try and take tablets so I could just go to sleep to go home. And that's what I always called it. I just, in my heart, I knew I was trying to go home to where it would be peaceful. And so it was that desperate longing not to be in kind of the hardship of life as a human. And that went on until I was 15 years old. It was never really a big thing. I just kind of did it a lot on my own. Nothing ever seemed to really happen to me, which was quite frustrating, added to the depression, I think. And also I became quite angry. So I was quite rebellious, but also rebellious in a way where I always knew how to take care of myself. I always stopped before it was too dangerous, too problematic. And so when I was 15, I took my final overdose attempt. And on that time, I was at a boarding school. And so it would have been my roommates that would have woken up to find me, which is a horrible, horrible thought. And, when you're in that place, you just don't care. You're so desperate to escape. And a voice came to me and just said, you need to own up to this and you need to live for the people you've not yet met. And so, and it always still, that memory is so strong because, I was so desperate and I felt so alone at the time that part of me that chose to know it, that real knowing that we have, especially when you have psychic gifts, where with every bit of you and more than you, it's in your whole energy field that it's a truth that you have to follow it. And so I did, and that was the last time, and I promised I'd never do it again. But I became very resigned to life. So I became very anxious. I adopted lots of coping strategies, mostly working too much and drinking a lot. And in particular, for me, it was really the workaholism. I would sleep 4 hours a night, maybe, to keep myself preoccupied. And that buried a lot of the mental health, to be honest. I'd have bursts of depression. I'd take antidepressants. I'd have panic attacks. Those got worse into my late 20s. And I started, eventually I taught dance to disabilities for a few years, but that really made me very depressed. I think it tapped into my intuitive abilities. And it really used my gifts, but I was not in a good place emotionally and mentally. And so it actually made me more depressed, even though I was really gifted. I could see I was gifted, but I couldn't understand why. I didn't have the confidence and the self-esteem to value what I was doing. And so I went to a fortune teller and she told me to study law. So I went and became a lawyer, which was a good distraction for my mental health. It funneled all that overthinking about life and why we're here and why is everything unfair, and I could put it to something. And I loved law for supporting creative people, artists, music. And so for me, it was very much connecting me to a creative world, my dance world, and that creative expression that we are as human beings. But also that part of me that felt the karmic resolution, right? You know, of like justice and how do we understand what is fair and what balance is. And so I really enjoyed law, but obviously it fueled my overworking, and my disconnecting from my spiritual self immensely.
So you can say that you were disconnected from this world.
I was very disconnected. I had gotten married. I was very disconnected from my husband. He had developed epilepsy once we married, and I was not being empathetic enough to him. I was trying to solve things to make it work. You know, I was busy with my work, trying to fix things at home, just being in that doing, and very disconnected from my heart and my spiritual self. And the anxiety just got really bad. The panic attacks just got worse and worse. And I just carried on drinking, and my marriage ended. And I just worked, and I would drink, and I would go out, and I would dance. And, you know, you get into that. And I did a lot of fitness. So, you know, I was just working myself, really in doing and not really connecting. Kind of taking care of myself. I ate healthily, you know, I was doing my exercise. So I was doing the right things to live a good life. But I wasn't connected to my heart, and it was very much pushing and striving and driven, which we do in our 20s and our 30s. I think that's the time of our life to, you know, really have that action and fire. But it wasn't from my soul's calling. It was from avoidance, right? Of really looking and feeling that depth.
Can we call it that the ego? You are in the ego.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very much in that fear of looking at our suffering and avoiding it. Managing it. That's what I would say. I was doing at that time. I was managing my depression. I was managing my anxiety. I was managing my health. I was managing my life. So that's the ego. It likes to manage, right? And be in control of.
Exactly. In control.
Yeah.
In control.
Yeah.
Totally. So it was that event 12 years ago, 13, 12?
12 years. Yeah.
That was your wake up for the spiritual?
Yeah, the universe always gives us plenty of signs, right? So it gave me the panic attacks. They got really bad. It gave me the end of my marriage. That didn't work. And so eventually I had to fall down some stairs and land on my head. And that was still slow. Initially, I was quite functional. They call it I presented well because of my training. I appeared and still kind of spoke well, but I couldn't stay awake for more than, kind of 20 minutes at a time. I didn't sleep for more than 40 minutes at a time. I couldn't write sentences. A lot of, I'd get words confused. So there was a lot of signs that I was cognitively really struggling. And emotionally, I would just lose my temper, and I would just attack people for no good reason. Like emotionally, I had no control, just things were just needed to come out of me. And I was very lucky, especially my friends that came to stay with me and who would look after me at home, because I was struggling to cook. I would burn myself, have lots of accidents at home. So it was not a very, very good period. It was very sad. It was very hard. It took me 7 months really to realize how sick I was and that I had to not work for a year and a half. And even at a year and a half, I could only then start teaching one yoga class a week. So I was very, very low in energy, and there was a lot of recovery.
So you read some books about spirituality. For example, do you know a book called Course in Miracles? Do you know it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I very much took the approach to rebuild my life and use meditation as I was recommended. I did a brainwave treatment, which was 5 days of like meditation with EEGs around my head, where they would give me specific meditations for different brainwave patterns. Part of it was to rebalance the trauma, but also it showed me the importance of Yoga Nidra and how Yoga Nidra also works all of these areas of the brain. So I began taking Yoga Nidra recordings as well as normal meditations to really holistically rewire my brain. And I also studied Cindy Dale's chakra healing and used that and kind of walked myself really carefully through how to rebalance my chakras. And that was my first year, just chakras, meditation, Yoga Nidra, just very gentle energy and my body. So really, I think it's really important in our spiritual journey. We have to be grounded. Otherwise, we can go into bypassing and escapism, which when you have mental health, you're already trying to bypass and escape. And so in understanding that I was being asked to, acknowledge living in this body and really be grateful for that, it was practices that could really be present with the energy and the sensations of my body. And I also I was recommended by an energy healing friend to do Tai Chi. So I learned Tai Chi to rebuild my balance, but also the energetics and breath in Tai Chi was really powerful for me to really start connecting to higher energy and light. And obviously I carried on doing Reiki, which I'd been doing before my accident.
Okay. So it was several techniques that help you to get better? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, many. Over the years, I feel very lucky that my meditations were very deep, and often they would connect me to a wisdom that I didn't know about. And then I would go and study it. So I was connected to learning about the I Ching. And so I started looking into that, which took me to the Gene Keys. When I started really getting connections with Buddha, then I started really looking at Buddhist philosophy, which took me to Pema Chodron's work and the Feeding Your Demons with Lama Tulstrom Alioni. And so these different practices often came to me through my own meditations. I'd be prompted to then go and find out, well, who is this person? What is that? And that took me deeper also into healing my own layers of inner child and past life trauma, which was really affecting me because obviously I'd always had that very open kind of portal connection with my past lives. And so there was obviously a lot of past life healing for me to be working with in this lifetime that was connected to this lifetime's inner child healing.
So you practice hypnosis, deep hypnosis, or no?
So Yoga Nidra works at the same level of that hypnagogic state, but we don't, with Yoga Nidra, you're not making suggestions, which you are with hypnosis. With Yoga Nidra, you're allowing the person's brain to openly reorganize itself at the level it's ready to reorganize itself. I say it's a bit like when we used to have PC computers and you had to do defragging of your computer, and you used to have all the little colored dots, mm-hmm. and you would see all the little colored dots organizing themselves into their different areas. And that's what I would say. Yoga Nidra does that for us, and it does it at a subconscious level so that we can be healing without needing to kind of do a lot. But it may bring things up that we kind of then afterwards say, okay, I'm going to go and look into this. I'm going to go and find out, what do I need to do consciously? And that's a lot of my offering now. And I do a form of conscious connected breath work, clarity breath work, which is also very nurturing, very powerful, but it has that subtlety, which, you know, you can have a session where you go, wow, I'm never going to do that thing again. And I've had that. That's how I gave up smoking. I saw it. It took me there. But I've also had that experience where it feels like nothing happened, but I suddenly have stopped reacting to something in a way that I used to. And I don't know, you know, and it just came from what felt like really relaxing practice.
Okay. So what music plays in your life? Music plays any role in your life? For me, it's my therapy. And for you?
Yeah. Music is, it's funny. I studied musical theatre. That was the boarding school I was at. So I was a singer and dancer. And so I teach dance here in Sydney and do movement online. And I include sound with breath work with the online groups, because sound and using our own voice is so healing when we do vocal toning. It's immensely healing because we can help rebalance it within our bodies. So that is a huge favorite of mine. I do it on YouTube through gargling as well. So we're adding in that vagus nerve technique, you know, salt water, if that helps as well, you know, in terms of our immunity. And so, you know, adding in gargling and singing or humming so that it's fun, so that we can feel lighthearted. You know, all these things are really good for uplifting and healing our energy field. And so I'm a big, you know, sing along, gargle along, like just having your own fun with your own voice. And experimenting where you can find your voice within your body. And it does remind me of when I learned Alexander technique with singing, you know, moving the body and making noise at the same time and seeing how that changes the sound. It's also, you know, a really beautiful way to connect into the chakras and heal them when we direct our sound and our breath into them. So that is, to me, a really essential part of grounding and really anchoring our frequency with our body and being in that alignment. And also, you know, going to kirtan and being with other people, singing in community, that beautiful meditative repetition that we have with mantra singing. And so I do love to include mantra singing. That's something else that I include with the online breathwork course. And then obviously there's music itself that we listen to, right? To move to dance, and to just enjoy. And so, you know, when I'm running my dance sessions, when I'm using music to create an environment, that's really important, that it's uplifting, that it's got a resonance that can also set us free from being too serious, right? You know, there's some songs that we need to play so that we can be serious, right? You know, it's like I wanna call in an anthem for peace, right? Like that is a serious feeling, right, that we all want to have. And so that can be a really beautiful collective song we can have in breathwork and dance, where we can all come together and really feel like the importance of wanting peace around the world. But then at the same time, you know, it's like, but each of us wants to feel freedom, right? And sometimes freedom can be like really like silly, you know, like setting ourselves free of everything being serious and hard work and focused, you know, and it's just like just setting it free. And so I like to use music in that way, that it can help us shift the vibration and set ourselves free from things being too serious, but also to really honor when something does need to be serious. And that's kind of, I guess, that's how I use music in my dance and my breathwork groups, is I'm looking at the energy flow of the music and how it's going to give someone that full emotional journey through that vibration as they take their healing.
Okay. So now what is your project, what you are doing right now? Okay.
So at the moment, the project is, we have an online membership called Your Sanctuary, and that brings together all of the work that I do. So because I do quite varied, I'd say most of it's very gentle, nurturing work, but there is a strength in it, right? You know, there's that rebuilding, being an active person in the world. And so I have quite a range of courses, from doing meditation, energy healing, the breath work, movement practices, and the contemplation with the gene keys. And so it felt appropriate to give everyone just one space to come and explore, that they can dip in and out of what feels aligned for them at that time, and to make it affordable for the range of, pre-recorded videos. There's so many workshops on all kinds of things, ranging from intentionality, digestive health and movement practices for that, different kinds of breathing practices to help us shift our state in many different ways, as well as working with being an empath and how to reclaim your power through energetics. And so it's so broad. We said, let's just make this a membership so people can come in and I can direct everyone. Where do you need to go? What is the support? Do you want to do a bit of self-paced? Do you want to come to a live with me and be in with the live groups? Or do you want to just watch the replays? And that's the community that we've built, is people who do what serves them best at the time.
Okay.
And feel supported by a really kind and gentle environment. And that's the key, because when we can know that we're safe in a gentle environment, we feel that, and then we can open ourselves to more easily surrender to the healing that's really available and letting grace in.
Do you practice retreats, spiritual retreats, or no?
I have done in the past. I'm not at the moment. I'm in the process actually of talking to a couple of people to start retreats again in 2026. I used to, for a couple of years, all I did was live and work on retreats. And I loved it. I did it in Central America, I did it in Europe, I did it in Sri Lanka. But since I moved to Australia, part of moving to Australia was just really needing to ground myself, give myself a home, and build my own new community, because I moved here from England after I'd been traveling around the world. And so just been really anchoring myself with a base on earth. And now I'm starting to get really excited to go back to retreats. So yes, they'll be back from 2026. I just want to give everyone good time to plan it, and make sure it's going to be the right experience for everyone coming along.
Okay. So one last question. Do you think artificial intelligence will free humanity for self-knowledge and spirituality, or not? What your intuition tells you?
My intuition says that artificial intelligence is a tool at the moment of our creation, and it's an opportunity for us to recognize our consciousness and creativity. A large part of consciousness is creativity, and we have an opportunity to be really conscious with technology and really conscious with creation. And because artificial intelligence is such a fast reflection of our consciousness, it's like it's become an amazing fractal mirror of us as a species. And therefore, it's a more rapid acceleration of our conscious evolution if we're conscious in how we use it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. So it always comes back to use, right, and intentionality. That's really, to me, the key piece. And my honest feeling in terms of our current evolution is that, we see so much suffering in the world. We're not designed to see so much. We're designed to live in smaller communities where our empathy and compassion is held in a smaller space. So it's easier, it's manageable. Part of expanding ourselves globally, and AI actually helps with this, is that it makes us see more, it makes us experience more suffering, and that actually expands our ability to have deeper compassion. If we can evolve ourselves to have really conscious, full compassion and empathy, then we have more mastery of our emotions, which makes it easier to be more intentional. And that is the consciousness shift, because then with that heart intentionality, that heart-mind connection, then we really are living from a place of pure consciousness, and we're not just being driven by like too much emotionality. And that's where, and that's what I mean by, AI is an opportunity for us to really see and experience ourselves as our conscious evolution without all of that emotional overwhelm. But we as beings have to embody our own ability to, I don't like control, because it sounds like, but to understand and to harness the power of our emotions appropriately and in a conscious way.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For being here.
Thank you.
And I hope you'll hear you soon, someday. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be lovely to meet you. I love coming to Portugal, so it'd be lovely to meet you, Nuno.
Okay.
You're amazing.